The town of Enugu had many wonders, but none as strange as Madame Ebbo's salon. It stood on a quiet street, wedged between a rundown tailor shop and a tiny provision store. Unlike the more modern beauty parlors with their glass doors and neon signs, this salon had an old-world charm, wooden shutters painted deep indigo, a door with iron carvings of tribal symbols, and a small, hand-painted sign that read Ebbo's Hair and Beauty Haven. It was a place of whispers and caution. For years, the women of the town came and went, their hairstyle to perfection, yet none ever spoke about what happened inside. The only thing they ever mentioned, if at all, was the rule that had remained unchanged since the shop first opened: there were no mirrors inside. To outsiders, this was absurd. What kind of salon had no mirrors? How did customers check their hair? Why did no one ever question it? But to the people of Enugu, the answer was simple: Madame Ebbo did not allow it, and no one dared to challenge her. Some said she was once a famous hairstylist in Lagos, only to flee to this quiet town after an incident that no one spoke of. Others whispered that she was involved in things beyond human understanding, that she knew secrets about the unseen forces that roamed the earth. A few even claimed that she had made a pact with something dark, and mirrors were forbidden because they showed more than just a reflection. Whatever the truth was, one thing was certain: Madame Ebbo's salon thrived. Women came from all over, not just for the impeccable braids and intricate cornrows, but for the strange sense of peace they felt once inside. It was a sanctuary, silent, warm, filled with the rich scent of shea butter and burning incense. Some claimed their headaches faded the moment they stepped through the door. Others said their troubles seemed lighter after a visit. No one could explain it, but no one questioned it either. Until Amoka. Amoka was not like the others. Born and raised in Enugu, she had spent the last few years in Lagos working as a journalist, exposing scams, debunking myths, and writing about real-world problems. She didn't believe in superstition. She believed in facts. And now she had returned home on assignment, tasked with writing about unique businesses in small towns. Madame Ebbo's mirrorless salon was the perfect story. With one last glance at the carved symbols on the door, she stepped inside. A bell jingled softly above her, and the scent of burning herbs filled her nose. The room was warm, the air thick with something she couldn't name. The walls were adorned with paintings of women with elaborate hairstyles, vivid, almost lifelike. But no mirrors. Not even a small reflective surface. Behind the wooden counter stood a woman who could only be Madame Ebbo. Tall and regal, her deep brown skin glowed under the soft light of flickering candles. She wore a dark blue headscarf wrapped high, adding to the aura of mystery that surrounded her. Her sharp eyes settled on Amoka the moment she entered, as if she had been expecting her. "You seek something," Madame Ebbo said, her voice smooth and knowing. "But you do not yet know what it is." Amoka hesitated. Something about this woman made her uneasy, though she couldn't explain why. She reminded herself that she was here for a story, nothing more. "I'm a journalist," Amoka said, forcing a polite smile. "I heard about your salon and wanted to learn more. People say it's different from other salons." Madame Ebbo's gaze did not waver. "Different? Or dangerous?" The words sent an unexpected shiver down Amoka's spine. She chuckled nervously. "I don't believe in superstitions, if that's what you mean." Madame Ebbo said nothing, only watching her with an unreadable expression. Then, after a long pause, she gestured to a chair. "Sit." Amoka hesitated but obeyed. The moment she sat down, the room seemed to shift. The candlelight flickered, the air thickened, and a strange silence wrapped around them like an invisible cocoon. Madame Ebbo stepped closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "The question is not why there are no mirrors in my salon," she said. "The question is, why do you need to see your reflection so badly?" A slow, creeping dread curled in Amoka's stomach. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Somewhere outside, the wind howled, rattling the shutters. And for the first time in her life, Amoka felt as though something unseen was watching her from the shadows. Amoka sat in the chair Madame Ebo had offered her, feeling the weight of the woman's piercing gaze settle upon her. The room seemed smaller than it had been a moment ago, the flickering candlelight casting unsettling shadows that moved just a little too strangely. "You have come for answers," Madame Ebo said, her voice soft yet firm. "But you may not like what you find." Amoka crossed her arms, feigning confidence. "I just want to understand. Why no mirrors? Every salon I've ever been to has them." Madame Ebo's lips pressed into a thin line. She turned, walking toward a wooden cabinet at the back of the room. With slow, deliberate movements, she pulled out a small bowl filled with what looked like blackened herbs and set it on the counter. The air grew thick with an earthy scent as she lit the herbs, the tendrils of smoke curling upward like ghostly fingers. "Mirrors are not as simple as they seem," she said finally. "They do not just reflect. They reveal." Amoka frowned. "Reveal what?" Madame Ebo met her eyes, the firelight dancing in her irises. "The things we do not want to see." Amoka felt a strange discomfort settle in her stomach. She had expected folklore, superstition, something she could dismiss as an old woman's eccentric beliefs. But the way Madame Ebo spoke made her uneasy, as if there was more truth in her words than she wanted to admit. Madame Ebo gestured to the room around them. "Women come here not just for hair, but for peace. There are things in this world that latch onto vanity, that wait for a moment of weakness, a simple glance into the glass. And once they see you, they do not forget." The words sent a chill through Amoka. She forced a laugh, trying to dispel the tension. "That sounds like something out of a horror story." Madame Ebo did not smile. "Then perhaps you should ask yourself why every horror story begins with a mirror." Then, she saw it. Among the shards, something moved. A flicker of motion, a shifting shadow, a glimpse of something that should not have been there. A hand, too pale, too long, reached out from one of the larger fragments. Eyes darker than the abyss stared back at her, unblinking, unfeeling. A voice, soft and echoing, filled the room. "Why did you do that?" Amoka stumbled backward, her breath caught in her throat. The room around her felt distorted, warped, like she had stepped into a space that did not belong to her anymore. Amoka turned and ran. She bolted out of her room, her feet barely touching the ground as she sprinted through the darkened house. Her only thought was to get to Madame Ebo. She needed answers, she needed help. By the time she reached the salon, her hands were shaking so badly that she could barely knock. The door swung open before she could even touch it. Madame Ebo stood there, her face unreadable, her eyes shadowed with something deep and knowing. "You broke the mirror, didn't you?" the older woman whispered. Amoka gasped for breath. Something came out. "I saw it." Madame Ebo closed her eyes for a brief moment before stepping aside. "Come inside," she said. "There is no more time. You need to understand what you've done." Amoka stepped in, the air inside feeling colder than it had earlier. As Madame Ebo shut the door behind her, locking it with heavy iron bolts, Amoka realized something chilling. The salon was the safest place left. And whatever had come through the mirror was still looking for her.